Let's have a talk, let's have a chat, talking about a little this and that. Hello and welcome to This and That. I am your host, Mary Easterling, and today we are going to continue with Bob Neumann's Storm Trilogy. This is kind of a response to talking about storms, storms are happening. And in our last episode, we were talking about the storm. In this episode, we're going to be doing the coming storm. But before I start, to listen to the last episode and anything else from This and That, go to talkingaboutthisandthat.wordpress.com and click on the podcast link. You'll have to scroll down and find the Neumann's Storm series. You can look at the Neumann's Goshen series, or the Goshen series for One Spirit, One Lord, or anything else on This and That. Neumann's writings will also appear on our blog page. So without further ado, the coming storm. Since the beginning of time, man has striven against the planet called Earth. Among all the creation, he was endowed with the authority to take dominion. In fact, in any one measure of ability, he was never equal to the creation. All his senses were inferior to that which is in or under his dominion. Sight, hearing, smell, and taste lack most levels of true acuity. Size, strength, speed, supple dexterity were limited, yet man took and held dominion by the quote-unquote gifts of knowledge and will. Conscious thought, not based on instinct, was the difference between man and the creation he had been given dominion over. In other words, ask your dog or cat to make a thoughtful, intentional choice about their favorite toy or what toy they'd like to play with in the moment. Produce a bunch of toys. The animal will go over to a random toy and that will be it. But you won't know whether it was an intentional thought, whether it was planned, whether it was considered. You just know it did it. Of course, do something that spooks the animal and watch the cat's hair stand straight up. Watch the dog whip about and look at you. Why? And oh, by the way, cats will go feral like snap. Snap of the finger, feral. Dogs take a little longer, but they can go feral. People take a lot longer to go feral. Even homeless people aren't feral. They're just homeless. Why? Conscious thought. The ability to make decisions. Bob writes, and as man's dominion expanded over the face of the planet, man by conscious action ceased to adapt to the environments around him. He took dominion over the land. He domesticated both plants and animals, creating social structure and eventually civilization. Today, many stress the destructive nature of man, confusing conscious dominion with mindless plunder. That is a point of modern man's failure to understand his own beginning. Ancient man did not plunder nature. Quote-unquote dominion is bred on sensibility. What can be modified was domesticated. That which could not be domesticated was either controlled or defended against. Simple safety precautions eventually evolved into what we now think of as cities. But cities were not built to conflict with the environment. In fact, the environment dictated where and how the cities were built. Ancient man lived in harmony with nature. The planet's cycles and patterns, in spite of modern thought, dictated to man. What he could not control, he adapted to. The seasons told him when to plant, when to harvest, when to travel, when to build, even when to make war. Ancient man to prove his point, in all instances, worship the creation, not the Creator. What man could not control, be in dominion over, he had to appease. So he created religion. Now, I got to stop here and I got to interject something. This is fallen man, folks. Planets, cycles, patterns, we call those constellations. Go do a Google search on constellations. Do a Google search on different civilizations and see if you could pick, say, the bear, the archer, the crab. Find out what other names were given those same star patterns. And if you were somewhere else in the world, those star patterns appeared on your horizon at a different point in the lunisolar year. Yes, moon, sun together. Lunisolar. Very few went with just the solar only. They looked at the phases of the moon because it would tell you the 28-day cycle of a month. That would tell you how your wife was going to be behaving, when it was a good time to cozy up to the missus. If you knew how to read your moon, you might know how to fertilize her womb, or when. The constellations, and we see these things that are built like calendars. Go Google them. Archaeology finds out that the sun will appear in this cut, in this formation at right about this time. And if you turn around the other way, the sun will appear in a different cut right behind you at a different point in the year. And you would know when it was your time to harvest, time to plant. That's how it was done. That's how man did what man did. But sin makes man dissatisfied with the simple. No. Sin has man worshiping the creation, doing religion to appease things that they create out of their imagination. Since they have no knowledge of the living God, then they look at the constellations, they give them names, and they call them the deities. That's called worshiping the host. See, and then we just got more and more technological, and people invented things, and look at where we are now. Bob writes, in the midst of his superiority, in so many levels, man understood he stood helpless, defenseless against the catastrophic, quote-unquote, whims of nature. Survival itself was too often endangered by the unforeseen, the unexpected, that which could not be anticipated. Even in modern society, this, quote, ultimate truth, unquote, has not changed. Knowledge, strength, and even technology give us little advantage when the storm overtakes us. The 5 daughters of the storm are death, destruction, devastation, disease, and despair. Throughout history, man has stood helpless and vulnerable in the face of the storm. But the storm has many faces. As man progressed, advanced, became the builder of civilization, the storm gained newer faces, more frightening and terrible as man, quote-unquote, expanded himself. The more he succeeded to, quote-unquote, control his environment, the greater threat the quote-unquote storm posed to him. Today, as man continues to move farther out of harmony with his creator and the creation in which he has been given the responsibility of dominion, he moves closer to the storm and his own destruction. The same man who recently stepped away from his creator now runs to the religions he has made to allow him to either confront or negate the storm. Man does not know he has brought the storm to himself by turning away from the Creator. I interject. Remember I said, this is sinful man. Eve was deceived, but Adam had a choice. Ew. Bob writes, today the prognosticators are warning about the quote-unquote season ahead. Hurricanes, tornadoes, floods are being predicted by all quote-unquote seers. At the same time, media quote-unquote oracles warn of economic tremors with shaking in all the markets. Quote-unquote political pundits daily cry out warning about the instability of governments and movements who seek settlements by the spilling of innocent blood. Pseudo-social psychics make proclamations of impending doom because of an inequality between the peoples as they promote racial and social tension. Any human being on planet Earth today who has any access to any team of quote-unquote media is aware of all these facts. And we are warned, and are still being warned. Nearly 2,000 years ago, we were told, Matthew 24, the whole chapter. Now, before I read this is in two parts, folks. You need to have a bit of a teaching. This is talking about the temple, and Jesus makes a remark about the temple, and that shook his disciples because the temple was their life. So they ask him about, well, hey, what about this thing? And Jesus begins an explanation. He even gives them the warning that the Christians took, according to tradition, before 70 A.D. However, and I hope to be able to make it obvious by saying, now this you want to listen to this because this isn't about that. There are two endings. One is the ending that is about to happen in just a few years. The other is the ending that hasn't happened yet. So, the scripture writes, and Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, you see these things? Verily I say to you, there will not be one left here, not one stone upon another, that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. This is the and they were shook moment, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of your coming and the end of the world? Now, I'm going to interject here. There's actually, if you look at this in another one of the Gospels, Luke, I think, it talks about the end of the age. In Matthew, in the King James Version, it says the end of the world. Once again, this is talking about the end of the temple era. Folks, if you were Jewish back in those days, Temple on Temple Mount in Jerusalem was your world. I mean, throw that building down and that's the end of the world for you. Get it? Jesus continues, verse 4. And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines, there will be pestilence, there will be earthquakes in divers places. All of these are the beginning of the sorrows. Some other translations call this birth pains. Ladies who have had the kitty wonks that did not take the drugs or get the cut to the tummy. Do you remember them? They started out as mind-bending little pains. They just got worse. And then if you took your little classes, you were told, start timing them when they start occurring more and more often. When they get down to about so far, you might want to pack up and go to the hospital. Yeah, Lamaze, the only way to be informed. No, now we have Google. Just Google it. If you're pregnant and you haven't Lamaze yet, Google it. Google it. Now, back to the scripture. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted and kill you, and you'll be hated of all the nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray each other, and hate each other. Many false prophets will arise, and deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many will wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Which end? That's my interjection. Which end? I want you to consider that the nations that could have been preached to and reached to were reached by 70 AD and the end of temple era. Right now, I don't know of any place where the gospel has not been preached. But trust me, I'm sure the churches are looking. They're going to find that out-of-the-way place where they can spend the next decade or 6 trying to witness to the people in the loincloths. Because all the other civilizations have received it. Whether they liked it or not, it's there. Oh, wait, the Catholic Church. Oh, yeah, no, she'll do. She's the grande dame. She's the great lady. She's been out there like forever. She's what became of early Christendom. You know, in vincis hoc, in this sign conquer. And all of a sudden those scared little Christians were given all the power they could ever hope for and all the corruption with it. Jesus continues, verse 15. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, parentheses, let the reader understand, close parentheses. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who's on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. I mean, obviously you have to come down off the roof in order to flee. You might have to come down through the house and get out. But boy, if you're going to be grabbing, you better know where it is and be grabbing it on the way out. It's either that or you're going to find your way off that roof somehow and not go into the house. There was a reason for that. Neither let him who's in the field return back to take his clothes. Back to the city, back to the house. If you're not in the city, when the sign occurs, light out. Go as you are. And woe to those who are with child, who give suck in those days. In other words, okay, ladies, folks who give suck. Oh, give me a break. Nursing. It's an archaic thought. We now use the baba, the bottle, with the binky, with the pacifier. But back in the day, the ladies had their layers of clothing in such a manner, and there was, it's okay to bear them for this, that when the baby needed to have its sustenance, the boob came out, the baby latched onto the boob, and something very erotic occurred. No, something very natural occurred. That ain't freaky, folks. That's just normal. Problem is, are you with the baby when the sign happens? Do you have to go back to get the baby? Do you need to get for yourself and the baby? See, once you are encumbered with the baby, you need extra stuff that you can't go back into the house. You're going to risk losing that child or killing yourself. You might have to risk leaving that child behind. Ooh, that's going to hurt. So, sucks to be you if you are with a child, because it doesn't take much for you to lose that pregnancy. They call that having an abortion, automatic abortion. I fell on my belly and now the baby's water's broken and the baby's coming out, abortion. And it's not going to live, so I just have to leave it on the ground, abortion. Oh, I might keep bleeding out and preeclampsia because it didn't work out right and I'm just going to die here now, abortion. See, abortion wasn't a problem back in those days. Being able to have the baby and carry it safely to term, that was the problem. And then there was infant mortality because, well, like, you didn't have what you have today. Hospitals, what is that? Midwives and the house. Oh, wait, you're going into the mountains. What midwives? Oh, that's going to be dicey. All right, back to the scripture. But pray that your flight be not in winter, neither on a Sabbath day. Why? Winter has the risk of cold. Winter might also have the risk of you're not going to be able to get anything along the way. You're going to have to wait till the next harvesting somewhere in order to grab something for yourself to feed you and everyone else. And if there was snow back in those days, well, now you really are, and you could die of exposure. A Sabbath day. You're not supposed to be doing that on a Sabbath day. See, what he's alluding to is the mess that went on in the late 60s AD before 70 AD. It was gnarly, y'all. It was nasty. It was scriptural. The dainty woman was eating her baby in her afterbirth and all that because there was nothing else in the house to eat. Nothing else in the city to eat. It's called starving time, folks. And the Romans were doing it. It's called laying siege. And at a certain point, that siege was going to break. And in that little break, zoop, all the Christians were to be vacating that city, right, left, and center, and heading for, quote-unquote, the mountain, whatever that meant. Someplace that everybody kind of knew about by that time. You had a few years to figure something out in the mountains for everybody to get to. And by the way, Judea, Jerusalem, Jesus doesn't say anything about anywhere else. Nowhere else was under siege. Just the temple area. Europe. So if you tried to leave on the Sabbath, you might get caught. You might get killed because they know you weren't Jewish. They'd see you as enemy. Christians were not loved. They weren't Jewish. They were pagan. See? That Jesus resurrection, baloney, bull shark. That's how they think of it. We don't. I don't. I treasure it. But the Jewish people of that day, bull shark. Well, it's because somebody paid the guards to say it that way and then got them killed so they could never be really closely interrogated and corroborate the truth. Skullduggery, skullduggery, skullduggery. Jesus continues, and everything shifts. For then there shall be a great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except these days be shortened, there should be no flesh saved. Not no Jew, not no Christian, no humans. All right, I will wager you go on Google and you look up the business around 70 AD and the fall of Jerusalem and all. It was nasty, it was gnarly, but it was survivable. It was a siege. But this is not talking about no humans left. Say, what? Now fast forward yourself to the last book of the Bible. Start reading that and start thinking to yourself, wow, God, if this just keeps, do the thought process. Logic out to the nth conclusion the patterns that you see there. Forget the seals. Just start with the trumps. Start with the trumps. And I don't. And I'm not being political. I mean trumpets. The trumpets of God. The I'm announcing it's coming stuff. Just look at that set of chapters. Logic that out. I'll even help you further. Logic that out from the point where the two witnesses show up, where it gets really, 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 really interesting, and the beasties show up. Logic that out and ask yourself, if God keeps doing the same grind of the wheel, oh God, of time rolling down, what's left? What's really left? Forget the hominids. What about, well, no. My personal opinion is these will actually be around. German cockroaches. I give you space, those of you that understand that, to bust a gut. Yes, I believe they will survive right up to the point where the new heavens and the new earth are made. That might kill them. Might not, though. I don't know. They're hardy little suckers. They're heck to get rid of, too. Jesus continues, then if any man shall say to you, lo, here is the Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs, false prophets, the beast, and shall show great signs and wonders. Again, I interject. What's been on the agenda lately in the church? Signs and wonders, to attest to the fact that I'm a prophet, I'm an apostle. See my signs and wonders? Source, matters, y'all. Jesus continues, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Let me run this sentence one more time. There shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Oh. Behold, I've told you before. In other words, behold, there, now you've been warned. The very elect. Oh, you mean the born out of God ones? What are we talking? False Christs and false prophets. False Christs, false anointed ones, and false prophets. Oh, what? The beast number 1 and the beast number 2? How many of those are trotting around right now in religious circles? I wager you will absolutely know when the stuff really starts to go through the fan blades. It ain't there is smelly, and then there is legendary. That's going to take legendary and make it tame. Y'all don't know what that's going to be like. That's the problem. Neither do I. Jesus continues, wherefore, if they shall say to you, behold, he's in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he's in the secret chambers, believe it not. In other words, don't go there. For as the lightning comes out of the east and shines even to the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For wherever the carcass is, there will the eagles, or vultures, be gathered together. Stop. Most people miss this allusion. It's code. Carcass and birds that predate carcasses tend to be on the ground. But Paul said there would be a carcass with some others gathered in the sky. Carcass is just another word for a meat sack. A meat sack is what hominids are. We're just not the kind that can fly yet. We're still at the 60 point. Some of us are only at 30 point. Some of us are still seeds trying to grow. Get out of the weeds and pull up the rocks. Come on, get on with it. The carcass is Christ in flesh, glorified. The eagles, not prophets, or vultures, or that which goes to a carcass to take from it, to eat of it. Oh, if you don't eat my body and drink my blood, you ain't got no part in me. What? That's predation. And Christians, guess what? Jesus Christ said, you supposed to be predating me. Chomp, chomp, slurp, slurp. Isn't the Holy Spirit supposed to be that grand, glorious, grand dame river flowing up from your belly? Feeding you what? Life on the vine. Feeding you what? From the Christ. Get it? That's the sign. That's the code. Immediately after the tribulation of those days. All right, here's where you go, wait a minute. Go and Google the 70 AD, because this didn't happen there, I don't think. The sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from the heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. Now, they like to allegorize this and go, yes, Israel fell. The sun, the moon, the stars, Joseph's little dream, the sons of Jacob. Israel's no longer a nation. Well, if that were so, when 70 AD came around, that's when everything happened, right? Oh, Jesus came again. Wow. That's a short amount of time. But I don't know. Maybe they're right. Maybe this is all hooey. Ever have a day when you just wonder about all this stuff? Okay, safe to say that the sun was not darkened, like as in sackcloth, and the moon was not blood red instead of white, so not truly giving her light, and we were not having meteor showers happening, and we were not having cataclysmic stuff going on in the heavens. Go to talkingaboutthисandthat.wordpress.com, click on the podcast link, and go to Revelations, Another Look. And then you will find out about the heavens that got shook and the stuff that rained down, because what goes up shall come down. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. That has not happened yet. That did not happen at 70 AD. Give me a break. That happens at chapter 14 in Revelation. See, I read the book. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, the last one, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven, the sky or the earth or wherever, to the other, which might just mean that everybody just kind of goes up wherever they are in the world, but Jesus is in one location, and the angels will be gathering you all over to where he is. I mean, I'm in America. He might be rising up over the Middle East. I'm going to be in American sky. Somebody might have to point me over to where the crowd is gathered with him at the Middle East. The guy over in China, however, he's going to have a little bit more help. Do I go right, left, backwards, or forwards? Which way do I turn around to get to him? I see the great light, but I'm not quite sure where the epicenter of it is. And an angel walks up and says, "Yo, follow me." Get it? Now learn the parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender, and he puts forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. This is code, and this is for them. This would have been told. That's how the Christians knew when it was time to get out, if I'm correct. Let's keep reading, though. So likewise you, when you see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. What is near? Remember I said there are two endings. Did he just flip back to the end of temple age? Well, let's see. Truly I tell you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Now, generation can also be translated as race. But if we're talking about 70 AD, the generation of people that were around in that era would not have passed away. I mean, you had kids. Bingo. It's only like 40 years. Give me a break. He died in AD 30-something, and the temple goes down in AD 70. 30 years. No. Most of these guys would be old codgers by this point. He might even be talking about the disciples who were around him who are likely to be 30-somethings. Okay, maybe Peter was a 40-something. I don't know. But they were still alive. That's the point. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. That's a lifeline to you. But of the day and the hour knows no man. No, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Oh, wait. The day and the hour. No, not even the people for 70 AD. God the Father determined when that break in the siege was going to come. The Christians were supposed to be paying attention, antennae up, like the serpent, scenting the air, taking the temperature of the city, watching the watchmen at the walls, listening to the siege works. And when it got quiet and word came out, hey, they left. Pew! Everybody leaves. Cockroaches going out. Rats leaving a sinking ship. That's right. But as the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. That is not the end of the temple era. This is the second coming. He's flipped right back to the book of the Revelation of Jesus Christ. For as in the days of Noah, before the flood, they were drinking, eating, marrying, giving in marriage unto the day that Noah entered the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So also the coming of the Son of Man shall be, and knew not. That's right. Then shall two be in the field. This is the thing now. This is harpazo. Two shall be in the field, one taking, one left. Two women grinding at the mill, one taking, one left. Two be in the field would be two men in the field, one taking, one left. Where the carcasses, the predators, will have gathered. Where the king is, those who are his will have gathered. Where the high priest of the confession of our faith is, we the priests shall have gathered. Watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord come. Then we get this. Verse 43. Know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would have come, he would have watched, would not have suffered his house to be broken up. That's an allusion back to both the strongman, the stronger than strong comes to bind, the strong man plunders his goods, the devil being defeated by the Lord, and the watch and pray business, and the thief in the night business. Therefore, be also ready, for at such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man comes. Who then is the faithful and wise servant, who his Lord has made ruler over his household, to give meat in due season? In other words, to feed the servants. This is called servants and stewards, folks. Blessed is that servant, who his Lord shall, when he comes, find so doing. So doing what? His job. Truly I tell you that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. So you've got the head servant over the servants, who is a steward of the servants. But he is certainly not steward of the household. He's just steward of the servants. Steward of the household is his boss. But if that evil servant should say in his heart, my Lord delays his coming, he's slack concerning the promise. Anybody who's been listening to this and that program will understand what I just said, because I said it in an earlier episode. Slack concerning the promise, which he isn't. And so begin to beat his fellow servants, and eat and drink and become drunk. The Lord of that servant will come in that day when he looks not, when he's not expecting, in an hour of which he is unaware, and cut him asunder, appointing his portion with the hypocrites. And there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Oh, wait, what? The outer darkness where the weeping and the gnashing of teeth is? Yeah. The faithful one who gave us this intense warning was called Yeshua ben Yosef, a carpenter from the village of Nazareth. There is not one nation where his name has not been spoken. His message of the good news has not been taught. Every language on the face of the planet Earth has its own variation of how his name is pronounced, but he remains the same yesterday, today, and his kingdom will have no end. We call him Jesus. He is the Creator, the Son of the living God. His instruction manual for his kingdom is called the Bible. The message of who he is, what is now happening on the earth, and the storm which now comes upon the earth is in this book, the Bible. If we see that what he warned about is happening, and all of what seems about to explode upon the world is exactly what he said, maybe we should learn exactly what he said. Maybe we should learn exactly what he said will soon take place. And maybe, just maybe, it might be smart to know a little about who he said he is. Now, we will start on that, called Anatomy of a Storm, in our next episode. Until then,